So thank you so much for having me for today's demo, and please bear with me because I am not very used to for having a in-person demo. So yeah, a lot of people know me. Like I've been a member of this club for like 4+ years now, and so a little introduction about me. My name is Saniya. I was born and brought up in India, so I've been staying here for more than 6+ years. My profession, I'm an engineer, but 2 years ago I quit my IT job and I've been doing this full time. I've been an artist for full time. I have a 2 years old daughter right now, so I've been taking care of her and doing this art shows. So I've done a couple of art shows in last 1 year, and yeah, that's pretty much about me. Like a lot of people know me from Art and Mind because I've been a part of Saniya Art Club and Art and Mind festivals over here. So I got a lot of requests from many of the members saying that they want to learn textured art. So in today's session, I will be teaching you textured art and what is textured art, what are the mediums available in the market, how you can decide which texture medium to use for which kind of art. So today I will be teaching specifically this painting, which is called shimmer. It is made using textured art. So the first thing is like, let's start with impasto. So textured art is also called as impasto painting. I'm sorry, before going ahead, like I am not a teacher. So I wanted this class to be a two-way communication. So if you have anything, you can just pitch in the middle and don't wait for me to finish it off. So yeah. So textured art is also called as impasto art. So impasto is just basically an Italian name for thick paint or thick texture in which you can see the brush strokes. So it's more like a feel to that painting rather than just like visuals to that painting. So that's about impasto. And the second thing is texture paste. So how to decide which texture paste to use for your painting. So if you go in the market and see, there are like n number of texture pastes available in market. So I've made a little chart for you to understand like what kind of texture paste to use for which kind of painting. So the very basic one, the first texture paste which goes with most of the texture painting is the molding paste. This is the basic texture paste which came very first, and after that all the texture paste came as artists went on like just trying out all the texture paste. So this is more of like a creamy texture. So when the texture paste is wet, it's an altogether different thing. And when it dries, it's altogether a different thing because the water intensity in it dries when it gets, I mean, it's gone when it's dry. The second is light molding paste. It's more of like a frosting, like you have seen a cake frosting over there. It's like more of a fluffy kind of thing and more of matte texture to it. So that's more of molding paste, like light molding paste. The third is the fine pumic gel. This has more of like a cementy kind of texture to it. Like, so if you want your painting to look a little rough, a little natural, to have a sandy texture, like you can use this fine pumic gel. This is the coarse pumic gel. So it's basically a little thicker sand added to the texture paste. So if you're hesitant to, yeah. So okay, I also like this also. So it's more of like a sand added to the texture paste for if you want something very like coarse kind of like texture to it. If you are hesitant to like try texture paste and try so many different texture paste because they are also costly in the market, and when you are new, like you think like let's go for some cheaper options rather than spending so much on some brand. But I would suggest that even if you are a beginner, go with some good brands molding paste because there is a huge difference when you try a beginner's level texture paste and a professional level molding paste. I mean, the end results are completely very different. So for this chart, I have completely used Golden Brands molding paste because that's a really nice brand over there, and it's like it's the difference you can see like for the beginner's paste and the professional paste over here. The fifth texture paste is like the heavy gel gloss. This is specifically used when you want like a shiny look to your painting. Like If you can see here, I don't know if it's visible to you or not.
When you put it down, then see
Yeah,
it.
you can see it here. So it's a little shiny over there. So I didn't add anything extra to it. It's just the paste and a little color to it, and it got that glossy effect. You can use this paste specifically when you are drawing some florals or some kind of thing, so that like it gets that glossy looks like. And varnish also helps to get a glossy look, but this adds a lot of gloss to it. Like even if you're adding the glossy varnish to it, the sixth paste is like crackle paste. As you can see over here, there are like cracks in it. I didn't do anything. I just put the paste on it, and then like while it was drying, it automatically got some cracks in it, which gives a natural cracky ground effect, like a dry lab effect to it. And then there's this hard molding paste. Again, this is like a more cementy and like a rough texture if you try to touch it. I'll just pass this on to you so you can touch this texture paste and feel it, and you can understand like how many different kind of texture paste are there and how they actually look like. So my second point was like to explain you like different texture paste available and how they actually look. And I prefer using golden molding paste going ahead. Like if you are a beginner, if you want to try your hands on into texture art, try with golden molding paste. They are a little pricey, but like if you take a wholesale pack from somewhere, like it's way much more cheaper than just going for 8 ounce or something. Yeah. Any questions in this? The second point? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So you said you're adding color. What are you using to add color?
These are basic acrylic colors. Actually, I have added. They are like not the if you have heavy body, that's more good because like if the consistency of the paste won't be affected if they are heavy body. If you want a little thick, like little paste, so you can use the normal acrylic colors too. And also, a very good point actually, the brand which you use for the color also matters over here because when you try to mix it with the paste, the color fades off a little bit. So if you're trying off with like texture paste, I would recommend like try and test it like how the color comes out with it. So there are two options actually when you try texture paste. First is like you can add the color directly to the paste. So in this case, like the color little fades off a little. So what I do is I usually do a 50-50, like a 50% paste and 50% color in it to give it a nice, really like that enriching look for that color. And the second option is you can just do the texture first and color on top of it. So I find it a little challenging to go over and color on top of it unless it's like a specific painting which requires that kind of thing. So if you see this painting, I made the texture first and then I colored on top of it because it required that kind of thing over here.
Can I ask you something? So the paste that you are recommending and using in these ones, are there synthetic or are there like a natural? Do you know?
No, actually they are like if you have used, I don't know, the cementy texture, they are not natural. Like they have something added to it. Yeah. Also a very good point. Whenever you are using texture, please make sure you're wearing your gloves because it's recommended like you wear a glove like and do it in a very well ventilated area. It's not that toxicy, but it's always to have precautions. It's always nice to have some precautions like if you already know about something. Yeah. So that's a nice
Does
point.
it dry it out quickly or like how long does it take to dry?
So it depends, like all these pastes have different drying times. Like, so if you're trying out some paste, make sure like you are testing it out first. So basically the drying time should be like at least 24 hours. And it has certain drying conditions, like you cannot heat dry it, you cannot put it in the sun, you cannot put it in the fan. It compulsory has to dry in the natural air. Because if you try to put it in the sun or heater or the room temperature is a little hotter, you may have some cracks in it and it might not look good. So you need to take a very good care of it while it's drying.
So the one that's over there that you painted on top later, was that dry by the time you painted?
Yes, you need to make sure that the painting is completely dry when you color on top of it, if you decide to color on top of it, right? So for the best case scenario, I usually keep it for 2 days to make sure that it's completely dry because you can't just touch it and check it because if you can't just like use for your painting, of course. So yeah, make sure like you're keeping it enough, you have the time frame is enough before you color the painting.
So I tried Impasto painting a couple months ago. I went to Michael's and I got some basic molding paste. But when it dries flat. It doesn't have the texture.
That's why I said like it's very important which molding paste you're using, because the beginner level molding paste are not super thick enough to give that peaky effect.
Yeah.
So that's why I recommended that I have tried like every single brand that's available in the market. I've been doing this for the past 5 years, like experimenting with palettes and knives. So I have come out with the conclusion that golden molding paste are the best. You can always go and try liquid X also. They are pretty much similar, but I prefer using golden because the peaks that come that are really super thick and that it retains the shape of the palette line, whatever you try to give it.
Okay.
So yeah, and it gives best result if you use with the heavy body colors.
I have a follow-up question. So I have this box of molding paste here. What can I add something to it to make it stiffer, to give some texture?
If you want to make it stiffer, we get a lot of like marble paste on Amazon. If you go and get it, you can add the marble paste to it. Usually, a lot of artists, like professional artists, make their own texture paste. You can also make your own texture paste. Like you just need to get some marble paste, add a little glue to it, and titanium white acrylic color to it. And it's like a homemade molding paste. But like if you want to start with, I would recommend start with some good brands. And once you are professional in it, and once you get a hold of like how to use the colors, you can make it of your own. Yeah.
So I should have looked for molding paste.
Yeah, molding base, golden brands molding base. Yeah.
Do you use palette knives especially, or you use brush too?
90% of times I use palette knife because it's easy to give the look and feel with palette knives instead of doing brushes. So I'm more comfortable doing palette knives over here.
Have you tried plaster of Paris?
Yes, I have tried
that
plaster.
is kind of
Yeah. So the thing with plaster of Paris is you need to be very, very, very careful because it's like very cementy texture, and the challenge over there is mixing it properly. If you don't mix it properly by any way, there are some lumps. You can have cracks.
you kind of see the
Yeah. You have to.
it falls out. Like
Yeah, it
after,
falls out.
after 2 months, the whole thing comes off. Like from the canvas, it will be separate.
Yeah. So I've used the plaster of Paris in lot of my paintings over here, but I would recommend adding a little acrylic color if you can add it, like little titanium white, which will bind it together and mix
some
it.
kind of, the glue also.
I don't use a glue, but still it sticks to it because I say that the key to get it like is like mix it very, very, very well. Like I usually get 15 to 20 minutes just to mix it. Or you have a hand mixer or something, that's the best thing. Like just go over it and make sure the paste is like absolutely smooth
And not
so
lumpy.
yeah, and not clumpy, so that the texture comes out without crack. And second thing is the drying time. I mean, like the drying atmosphere in which you dry, you need to be very careful. Like it's not too hot, not too cold, and it's not too windy, so you won't get any cracks in the top. Yeah.
So when you create artwork, so is it like, can you go detailed artwork with that? Do you have some examples that, like our slideshow that we can see that?
I can show you my Instagram.
Okay.
Over there, I have a lot of things. I'll just, I can show you over here. So, I have a lot of detailed paintings which I have done.
Because you probably need extra skill for that.
Yeah, you need
It's like practice.
yes.
Oh, it's okay. I'll check it out on your Instagram.
I need to show off this thing also, like which you want. For the plaster of Paris thing. So this is the painting I did using plaster of Paris. So yeah. So it did not have any cracks. It's been in my house and I've sold a lot of pieces using this. So for people who had question about plaster of Paris, no, it doesn't crack if you mix it very well and properly over there.
Can you little bit talk about the one which you have that?
This one?
Yeah,
Yes,
and
I'll be
maybe
showing you a demo, right?
Okay.
Just give me a minute, I'll show you one picture. So this is a very, I'm not
sure if you can.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just pass on my phone to you so you can see
Oh,
a
okay.
detail of like very detailed painting which I made using Impasto. Okay, so are we done with the questions of the texture piece and what kind of texture piece and everything? So we'll go ahead and this is a painting I will be teaching you in today's class. So there are two things, like the first one I did is like I created an underneath texture for this painting. And the second is I used a color and made another texture on top of that already texture I had created. So two very important things over here. The brand of color which I am using, as I told you. So I am using this US Art Supply brand color because I wanted a kind of a shimmery look, because all the leading brands which are available like Liquitex and Golden, they don't have this kind of color yet. So I experimented on a lot of colors and I found these one are the very best colors, like when you want to get a shimmery kind of look on your painting. So I'll just go ahead and I'll start and I'll show you how I made the texture, underneath texture. And one more important thing I forgot to mention, whenever you're doing texture arts, it's really important to use a stretched professional quality canvas. If you don't have a canvas, you can always do it on a wood panel, but make sure your canvas quality is a professional quality, because the texture is quite heavy and you will put so much effort and your painting won't come out properly because you're not using the proper canvas. I won't recommend the flat canvases either, because I tried doing on that and like it kind of got squeezed because of the heavy texture of it. So make sure you're using a very stretched canvas. So here I'm using a stretched canvas, and just because this painting required some like to leave some spaces, so I'm using a masking tape to keep that space.
So you recommend not using paper, just
Yeah,
canvas?
just canvases, because texture is, if you're doing very light texture, just like tiny here and there, just you're making some florals or something, paper would be fine. A very thick paper, the watercolor paper which we get like it's 300 grams or something, that would work, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like if you want to do it on a professional level or something. So that my canvas doesn't move while I'm painting. So now we are done seeing the sides. That's So for starting the painting, I will be using molding paste for this painting. There are three options which you can use. I use molding paste because I didn't want it that hard texture. If you wanted a little harder texture, you can always go for pumic gel or like more super thick molding paste which we get in the market. So I'm using golden brands. So I have a wholesale pack, that's why I got it in a smaller container here. So it's much handy and easy. And one more thing that I just realized, that it's very important for you to store the molding paste very nicely. Make sure you're storing it in a glass container if you're going to reuse the paste again and again and again, because then it won't get dried and it will stay wet for a really long time.
Okay, so I would say we get in class.
Yeah, that's a bucket kind of a thing. So that's why you need glass containers to store it, because once you open it, it's very difficult. Like you will always be opening it for smaller things, right? So it's better to store them in a container. So I'll be using this knife. There's not a particular kind of knife you need to use for this painting. I just want some elongated knife which will help me give a texture. You can use any kind of knife which has this a little elongated straight kind of thing, because I'll be using this a lot in this painting. So I'll just go ahead. Let's go And one more important, I'm so sorry, as I'm going, I'm remembering a lot of things. I'm not used to this. So the very first thing when I was a beginner to Impasto, what I used to do is like, I used to be so skeptical about using texture paste. Like it's very costly. I don't want to use so much. Once I be professional, I'll start using more. So that's the first wrong thing I did. So I would recommend, like, if you are doing texture paste, be very generous, because when it dries, it doesn't stay as thick as it looks when it's wet. So use paste generously. So I'm using the edge of my knife to like evenly spread the texture paste on the canvas very first. The first thing I'll do is like I will make an even spread on the canvas, and second we'll go and make the texture. So I'm just spreading it over. Just because we are using masking tape, I'm not being conscious about where it's going. There's nothing mixed in it. No, this is purely texture paste. Because we are going to color on top of it, I haven't mixed anything with it.
Now, which one of these are you using of the ones you were talking about?
The molding paste, the basic molding paste which we get in the market.
And how long typically takes to dry?
Depending upon how thick it is, but at least like 24 hours, like minimum 24 hours to dry. Depending upon the weather conditions, actually, because it has a lot of dependency upon how the weather is outside.
How expensive is that stuff?
8 ounce will cost you around like 14 to 15 bucks. But that's what I said. Like if you get a wholesale pack, like it's way much more cheaper than the smaller ones. Yeah. And to buy it on Amazon, it's a little more cheaper than.
So this wholesale pack has different molding paste.
Yeah, it does. It does. I am done with spreading this paste. And one more recommendation, like in between painting, like I wouldn't recommend it washing your knives again and again, because the more you put water, the more chances are that they might get spoiled earlier. So if you have wet knives, that's more good. Like you'll have a clean knife all the time, and you don't have to put it in water also. So that's the advantages of having a daughter. Kid. I got to know after I had a kid that you can use wet knives for this thing. Now I'll use the same knife. If you want to use another knife, that's also fine. Because I just want to do a straight line texture. What I'll do is like I'll hold my knife straight and just go over the texture piece to give it the straight kind of texture. Okay? So there are different kind of texture you can achieve using the palette knife. So this specifically I'm using it for this painting. There are, I mean, like I believe when it comes to texture, like there are no rules. Like do whatever you feel comfortable with, do whatever you feel looks good on it. This is how I made this painting. I was just trying to experiment with textures and how we can use our palette knife to give different kind of texture. So this is one of the texture you can do. The second one is you can just dab on top of it to give this coarse kind of texture. And there are like different kind of textures you can achieve. If you want, like you can also do like this kind of the random texture, just go over like zigzag or vertical or horizontal, whatever way you want. So yeah, the possibilities are a lot when you're doing this. You have to keep in mind that when this dries, it's not going to be this thick. The first layer, I just went over and then this dry.
How long do you have before this becomes unworkable, like too dry?
We go make dinner. Yes, of course we can go make dinner, depending upon which texture paste you're using, because the light molding paste and other paste dry a little quickly. If it's a heavy molding paste, it takes a super long time, then you have a time in between for it to dry, and you can always correct yourself. So I'm just holding my knife in this way. As you can see, there are little spikes over there on the molding base, the texture base which I'm using. So that's what gives it the texture, like the background texture which it had. So it looks very super thick. As you can see, this is wet one and this is the dry one. This is how it looks when it's absolutely dry. So it will have a different effect when it dries. So you need to try and test what kind of effect you want when you are actually working on your painting. That's how easy that was. Like, yeah. I know that this was quite an experimental piece for me. So I didn't know that it would turn out so good. And one more thing, while we are doing the texture, if you're using masking tape, make sure you're removing the masking tape when your texture paste is wet. Because once your texture paste dries and your masking tape is still on, if you try to pull on, it might just plug out some more texture on it. So always remove your masking tape when the molding paste is wet. Okay, so we are done with the third step over here. Before we move on to our next step, that is how did I put colors on this texture paste and how I added color texture using color. Does anybody have questions on this one? You're good here? Okay. So this is how it looks when it's wet. I'll just show you like this also. So you have an idea, like it's a little more juicier and more thicker when it's wet. This is how it looks when it's dry. You see? It's not that juicier anymore. It just has that texture on top of it. And again, I'll be putting masking tape before I put color on it. Also get a wholesale pack of masking tape because you'll be using it a lot. I think I should have. Also, you get it much cheaper on Amazon, like compared to Micros and all other sites.
When you're painting shimmer, are you thinking of a forest or what?
Yeah, so this particular painting is inspired by sunset colors. So I've made a set of shimmer paintings, like all three of them were inspired by sunset colors, like different sunset colors. So this specifically was painted like the golden hour during the sunset, so it was inspired by that color. I wanted to paint something like I was trying out abstract paintings and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to discover my original style, how to, because like you find this everywhere on Instagram where every artist is saying that find your own style, and especially when you're a beginner artist, it's very frustrating when you see this everywhere going on, that find your style, because it takes quite a while to figure out your style over here. And in this painting specifically, I have used shimmery colors. So I had to do a lot of research on different brands of color which are available. So my idea of using the shimmery color was like, I wanted it to look differently when you look at the painting from different angles. So if you see this has two colors in it, like depending upon which angle you are looking at from, it has got different colors in it. So I am using this US Art Supply brand, the only brand which I found like which had changed color when you look at from different angles. You also get a lot of mica powders which changes color, but I still haven't figured out a good way to like retain its colors like when you see it from different angles. Because when you mix mica powder to molding paste, it kind of loses its colors and it's not that shimmery and it's not that vibrant anymore. So yeah, that's the best color I got while I was experimenting. And I've also taken one more reason why.
It is a metallic paint, correct?
Yeah.
That's like, have you used that? Because it's copper and.
Yeah, so metallic paint is like they just have one color in it.
Yeah, two colors, yeah.
Yeah, but this
Not in the same one, two.
Yeah,
grades,
same
okay.
one, two grade. So this has completely different colors. So it has like golden color and a pearl color, depending upon which angle you see that in. So here, as you can see, The one which I used had gold and pearl color with it, and you get different set of colors with like two different colors depending upon where you are looking that painting from. And if you put this on texture, it's a great way to see because like it gives a different dimension to the texture art, right? For today's class, so I will be using this gold and this also the bottom color which I have used has two colors in it, the silver and the gold color itself. And one more reason for using this color is like, if you're familiar with acrylic colors and you paint a lot with it, you know that they are not that sticky, right? So, I mean, like, I'll show you while we are going, like when I put my knife on it, it has a sticky kind of consistency, which gives it the extra texture which I got on top of this painting, as you can see. It kind of has a net kind of effect on this one, which you cannot get with any other acrylic colors. Like, I mean, of course, you have to experiment with different kind of brands of paste, like which gives. So I did not find it with any other color except from this brand. So, yeah, one reason to use this brand's color. I don't get paid for this promotion. I should ask them to pay me. I've been promoting it a lot. So for this particular painting, I directly poured the color on the canvas because I felt that I need a generous amount of paint. So I didn't go over with a brush. Also because I wanted to add a texture to it. So I'll just go and add. As you can see, I'm adding this color generously.
So this is the drying time for these shimmer colors is similar to acrylic.
No, it's a lesser than.
Okay.
It actually depends upon brand also, right? So you need to try and test it out. But from my point of view, it took a little lesser time than acrylic. It also depends on the thickness, but it, so for the top texture, I am making sure to use a knife which is flat, as you can see over here. I mean, this base area for this knife is little more because I want to give the net effect on that color over there. So I'll show you with both the knife if you're interested. You just go ahead and I spread it out the color. As you can see, like, I don't know if you're able to see it, it has two colors, the pearl and the gold color.
yes,
And
I see that.
Not a lot of brands make this. There are like hardly one or two brands which make these kind of colors which change color. Need a lot of color while you're painting this on texture because you need to make sure the texture underneath is covered with the color. Otherwise, your canvas will be seen and it won't look nice. The very first step I did is like I just covered the canvas in color and just randomly mix these two color. The second step we'll be doing is we'll be adding some texture to this color. Now, I'll make sure to clean my knife before I go over this. And I'll start from the top because it's a lightermost color. And I'm just as you can see, like I don't know if you can see the consistency of the color. It's kind of like a sticky consistency, which is because of which the lenting effect is coming. The more quickly you go, the more net it kind of develops in the color.
It looks like fun thing to do too.
Yeah, really satisfied. Yeah. That's how easy that was. Like that's why I say, like when you're working with texture, it's really important to remember that there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. You can experiment with whatever you want. And that's how the texture was created. So as you can see, like it has a lot more texture than the paint that has dried because it's wet. the painting which you see while it's wet will be completely different from how you see it while it's dry. So you can see that for this immediately when it's wet, because after it gets dry, it will be difficult for you to. Yeah, we're done with the painting. I hope I didn't. This was a very first in person.
Also, just a quick mention. So for this kind of textures, like which paste you mix along with it, like some crystal graphite.
I use a coarse pumic gel. So I mean it depends. Like I use 2 mediums in it. I use the beach sand, the normal sand which you get on beach. I didn't go to the beach and get it. Actually, we get it Michael's or somewhere because it's much more cleaner, and you can just add it in molding base. So there are like different kind of things you can directly add to the molding base. Like for example, some tiny rocks or something to give it that texture effect. Like, there are a lot of things we get. Like you can just experiment with the molding base. You can just add it. It won't go off because it kind of sticks to the molding base, so that's a good thing.
So for this, you need to prepare a base layer with this molding base.
Yeah.
Apply this paste.
Yeah, for this because that was a completely different kind of painting, right? So that's why I made texture first and then I painted on top of it because it was like a cementy kind of texture, and specifically if you are using a molding base with cementy texture, color on top looks more better than mixing it. Yeah, because the color fades away. And if you're using a regular molding piece, it's difficult because it has kind of a creamy consistency when it dries. So it will be difficult for you to stick the color to the molding piece after it's dry. So yeah, I mean, depend upon what kind of painting you are doing, it changes.
So once the texture is formed, you have painted over it.
Yeah, once the texture is formed, I have painted over it. And also one more important thing, like if you're coloring on the texture, like if you are first decided to do the texture and then color on top of it, make sure you use very soft bristle brushes because you need to make sure the color penetrates through your texture and your canvas is not seen through that texture.
You can use that crackling kind, that you need to paint after, or paint it. Which way would be best with the crackles?
So depend upon what you want. So basically, like for example, if you're painting something for which like an earthy effect you want, like there's underneath earth and something like a more darker color beneath, so you just color beneath it, use a crackling base, and you can use other color on top of it with the crackling base and make sure that it doesn't go. The second thing is like you can just use a crackling base, let it dry, and if you have if you're using the liquid acrylic paints, so you can use something syringe kind of a thing to just penetrate between the cracks so it gives like a deep effect to the crackling phase. Depending upon what kind of result you would like to have it, like, but I would recommend like make a layer of color beneath the crackle piece and then paint on top of it, like, so it gives a good effect.
I like to frame, so how would you do the framing? Do you do it yourself?
Oh my God. Yeah, so many people have asked me about this thing. So yeah, I have experimented a lot on frames because I understand like being an artist, like framing is a like huge thing because it's very costly. So I got these frames from Jerry's. They have an online store. I don't know if they have an in-person store or not, but I feel that they are very professional framing and it gives a really nicer look to your paintings. Like if you put into that thing. So this 8x8 frame cost me about $35 or something. Yeah. I found the cost was a little reasonable rather than going to any shop and getting it custom frame, and they have like a lot of options. Jerry, yeah, Jerry. Any more questions?
Is there any recommendation for beginners? Is everything?
I have a YouTube channel if you want to see all the different, like I have a lot of texture, like I have around like 100+ videos over there for Impasto painting for texture base specifically. I've specified the texture base which I use over there. So you can feel free to go on my YouTube channel. If of course, if you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer you. I'm there on Instagram. I also teach on Skillshare. So yeah.
What's your YouTube channel?
Acrylic Saniya. Oh, yeah.
What was the brand of that paint that you were using?
It's US Art Supply. US Art Supply. Yeah, I'll just keep it here.
Is it from like Michael's?
I got Amazon. This paint isn't available in any store. It was just available on Amazon. Yeah.
How much does it cost from overall?
I don't remember the cost of it because I
But
ordered
it's
so many
not too
supplies.
expensive.
Like, it's not too expensive. I guess it was like 15 or 20 bucks, and it was like 7 to 8 tubes with it. Like that. So it was good. Like to start with, and the quantity is quite good. Yeah. It was cheaper than Michael's and like whatever you get over there. Yeah, definitely.
So whenever you're painting over the texture, I'm assuming you never like because I feel like it's like water based, right? You never use water.
I do use water depending upon what kind of consistency I want, because if you see for this particular painting, the texture here is very cementy and very thick and it's very coarse. So it's difficult to get the heavy body color under the texture and to cover the entire area. So what I do is like if I think the texture is pretty thick, I add a little water, very little water, and I make first layer so that even if we have some leftovers, like we are coloring on top of it, we won't be able to see that. Yeah. You can use water, but as I said, like make sure you're using very soft bristle brush to make sure your color penetrates to the texture.
So does the texture like I'm assuming that the texture actually soaks in the color of the water?
It doesn't actually, because at least golden rams it doesn't soak in because it has a cementy texture. It doesn't soak in like whatever, but because it's completely pat dry and you color on top of it, so it doesn't soak.
What about plaster of Paris?
Plaster of Paris does soak. Yeah. Like so, I tried a couple of painting using plaster of Paris, and what my experience was that even if I use heavy body color, if you have used acrylic heavy body, you can see there's a kind of a gloss